So, the first thing that we are going to discuss is what happens when we hit a URL in browser. So, this is also a very common interview question that you might face in design interviews. So, let's start. So, we'll try to think on the basis of a customer, that we are a customer and how we want things to proceed. So we know that every company, whether it's Amazon or it's Flipkart or it's Mintra, so these are big giants. So these companies are customer centric companies, means they major goal of them is to give user a better experience or the best experience. That's the main motto of these companies. So when we hit something like www.facebook.com in a browser, what actually happens when we hit? So basically, we hit the API, we hit the IP address, sorry, we hit the IP address. It might be 192.232.245.0. This is the, for example, if this was the IP of facebook.com, then actually we are hitting this IP address. Cool. So this is responsible for sharing the content. This is responsible for sharing the content. Cool. So just I'll refresh my page. So till now we discussed that if we hit something like www.facebook.com, we are actually going to its IP address. Cool. Now, but how did this thing came into place if the IP is responsible for sharing the content? Why this URL is generated? You must be wondering. So answer to this is, we cannot remember all IP addresses. We can't remember all IP addresses. For example, if we are having, if Gmail was interpreted like this, 191.242.235, this is a, means, just let's assume it is a, not the actual IP address that Gmail, it's just an example. Cool. So if Gmail IP was this, and for example, if Facebook's IP was 193.245.191.0, Instagram was something like this, 194.245.199.0, LinkedIn was this something similar to this pattern. So we are unable to, we are, it's not possible for us to remember all these things. It is not possible to remember all these things. So we generated this URL. That was the real motto behind this. Cool. So now how these IP and, just a second. Now you must be wondering that how IP is connected to URL. Cool. So there's a system called domain name system. Domain name system. So it is the system that stores domain name with the corresponding IP. Domain with corresponding IP. Cool. And it makes sure that it is unique. Cool. Gmail can't have different IPs. If this gmail.com is reserved for Gmail, that then Facebook or Insta or LinkedIn cannot use it. This is very important, that it keeps it unique. Cool. So broadly speaking, the website identify an URL. This whole bunch thing is done by DNS. Cool. So let me just draw a quick diagram. So this is the browser. This is the DNS. Cool. We hit facebook.com. Here is the IP 232.254, and finally we reach our destination, shared content, whatever this site is delivering. Cool. But in reality there's a lot that take place, so we are going to discuss that, what actually happens. This was the ideal case. This is the ideal case. Cool. In reality, something called caching occurs. CACHING. This happens. What this does is, for now we can remember it as a dictionary which has key value pairs. Cool. In reality, what actually happens that is, this is a browser. This is a browser cache. This is our operating system cache. This is our router cache. Cool. This is our internet service provider cache. And finally, at the last step, there is DNS present. These caches are present because DNS service will get too much loaded and it would crash. So to prevent crashing of DNS service, DNS system, we have these layers of caching present. Cool. So this is the reality. Actually, what happens behind when we hit a certain URL, for example, facebook.com, which has certain unique IP address. Cool. It has, when we hit browser, it first search for the browser cache. Then if it's not found in the OS, it looks for the OS cache. Then it looks for the router cache. Then it looks for the ISP, that is the internet service provider cache. Then finally, if there's no such option left, then we go to the domain name system. Cool. And find out. So I hope this lecture was informative. We'll meet you guys in the next one. Thank you.